It's been a interesting year, to say the very least. And it didn't disappoint. 2020 was an absolutely fabulous year for video games. In all honesty, I played so many goddamn games this year. This is the most games I've ever played, I feel, in my entire life, mainly because of this channel, because I wanted to review as many games as possible and play as many, current games that came out this year to review them and talk about my opinions on them to you guys. So I've played a lot. So to whittle it down to a top 10 list is really, really difficult. And in fact, the top 5 games of 2020, in my opinion, were really, really hard to kind of put in order. However, I do have a top 10 list of games I played in 2020, in my opinion, of games I played in 2020. But I do have some honorable mentions I want to say before we get into this video. One of the most notable games I haven't played that may be in my top 10, I don't know, because I'm currently playing it at the moment, is Ghost of Tsushima. I got Ghost for Christmas and I didn't think I was going to get it, and I tried to play as much of it as possible before making this video, but unfortunately didn't have enough time. I didn't want to fully express an opinion that I know I couldn't give on a game if I rushed it or didn't play all its features and stuff, because I want to give the most honest opinion about stuff. So unfortunately, the game is not in this list. It's an honorable mention. I will do a video review on it in the new year. I'm also going to give an honorable mention to Animal Crossing. I didn't think I would like Animal Crossing. I've kind of had a love-it-hate relationship with Animal Crossing, but because of the year we've had, I think Animal Crossing has kind of been that game that a lot of us needed. And when I got it way back in, I think around May time, or especially during the summertime, it was a really, really good game to play given the current environment and everything going around. So I want to give a little honorable mention to Animal Crossing. Hasn't made the top 10 list, but it was still a really, really good game and I enjoyed the time I had with it. So without further ado, let's get into my top 10 games of 2020, kicking us off with number 10. I didn't know what kind of game Bugsnax was, to be honest. I didn't know if it was trying to be serious in its kind of cutesy tone, but there was a certain degree of kind of maybe like a certain darkness behind it. Bugsnax overall was an enjoyable game. It wasn't a game I expected to enjoy, but I did enjoy some of its themes and, as I said, the darkness side of it. It's also quite a funny game as well. It kind of knows that it's taking the piss out of itself a little bit, and that's kind of why I love it. It's kind of a casual game, a nice relaxing game in some sense, in the terms of it's not too complex, it's quite easy to get into, and it's quite easy to get into the story, but it has a kind of lovable charm about it as well as the weird side of it where these cute things eat other cute things, and there's definitely no consequences about eating those cute things, right? It's a strange game, but it's also quite funny, and I really, really enjoyed it.
Hell, our home. Frozen when heaven extinguished the pyres. But one spark is enough to reignite a revolution.
Monster Train was definitely a game I could have easily got addicted to this year. In fact, the week playing Monster Train, I couldn't stop playing it. It is a rogue-like deck building game, so it's a card game essentially. Monster Train definitely had that just one more turn element to it where I couldn't stop playing it once I got into it, once I started unlocking things and exploring different ways to play the game and understanding different mechanics of it. It's a really, really addicting game once you get into it, and I couldn't stop playing this game once it came out.
And there's quite a bit of digital out there as well.
There's a lot of strange elements about Kentucky Route Zero, which I fucking love in a lot of media. But I absolutely love the tone of this game, and I also love the kind of twists and turns it takes. It does truly feel like watching a Twin Peaks sort of television show, and every episode that you play through just adds a little bit more to the story, a little twist to the story. It was really, really entertaining, and it actually just reminded me of those times when I was watching Twin Peaks for the first time. I absolutely love Kentucky Route Zero. Ori and the Blind Forest, the first game, was definitely a really hard sell for me because I normally don't play those kind of Metroidvania style platformers especially. But Ori and the Blind Forest was definitely a hard sell to get into. But once I played it, I realized that there was something quite sweet and magical about that game. It was honestly superbly animated. It was one of the most beautiful games I played at the time. And then its sequel came along this year, and I decided to check out once again, going off the previous game. I really, really liked that previous game. Didn't absolutely love it, but I really just liked it, and it kind of turned me on to those kind of style of games a little bit more. And this game was amazing. Ori and the Will of the Wisps is a truly, truly excellent game. Somehow the second game looks even better than the first game, and it really knows how to play with your heartstrings at this game. And as well as the first game, it was really, really hard to get through in all honesty in terms of difficulty, but I really, really enjoyed it. I pushed through, completed the game, and I really like it. And I think that this game, especially after playing the first one and now this one, it's kind of maybe turned a leaf with me in terms of platformers. I just beforehand didn't really care about them too much, and now with this game I'm sort of do like them. I mean, that's a pretty big compliment, right? This game has turned me on to a genre that I didn't really have that much interest in, but Ori and the Will of the Wisps is pretty damn good.
I know you wish things were different. I wish things were different.
Ellie!
But they ain't.
2020 seems to be that year full of controversial games and controversial ideas and controversial opinions and all sorts. And probably one of the games at the top of that controversial food chain, if you want to call it that, was The Last of Us Part 2. I didn't read too much into all the internet stuff that was going on with The Last of Us Part 2. I basically had no idea what the spoilers were that were leaked online. I know a lot of people would say that The Last of Us Part 2 is, in some cases, nowhere near as good as the first one. I would agree in some cases. I do believe that the first one is a lot better. I 100% agree. But I don't agree with a lot of the criticism that The Last of Us Part 2 was getting. I thought The Last of Us Part 2 was a great game. It is a hard game to play. It's a hard game to get through because it's meant to put you in that state where you don't feel comfortable, where you feel depressed a lot of times of what's going on and what impact it has with you, with the story. But The Last of Us Part 2 has some real standout moments that really, really fucking stuck with me. But I was entertained by it while also being slightly depressed playing it. But that doesn't make it a bad game. It just made me feel emotional throughout the game, which is a good thing. I really, really love Last of Us Part 2. I think it's a great game.
Stupid boy. I told you nobody gets out of here.
Yes, carry on, everyone. Don't mind me.
Another game that I felt like I was slowly getting addicted to, and it is a roguelike as well, is Hades. Hades to me seems to be the kind of indie success story of 2020. This game was in early access for about a year and a half, maybe up to 2 years. Finally came out of early access in 2020, and my god, it is an absolutely fabulous game. One of my main praises with Hades is just how easy it was to get into this game and enjoy it. In my original review, I basically called Hades simple but effective, and that's how I feel about it. It's an incredibly easy game to get into, and it doesn't overcomplicate things, especially when you first boot this game up. When I first played this game, I learned everything I needed to know in 10 minutes and I was ready to go. And Hades has just become my quick pick up and play game. I play this game every couple of days or so, and I have so much fun with it, and I don't think I'm going to be stopping for a very, very long time. So before I started recording this video, I was on YouTube and I was checking the couple of people I subscribed to and their top 10 games of 2020 to see if I missed out on anything, if there's any game that someone recommended that I follow, just to see if there's anything there that I didn't expect to see in a top 10 list of the year. But a lot of them didn't have Dreams in their top 10 list of 2020. And to me, that is absolutely baffling. Dreams was the only game I gave a 10 out of 10 to. And what I said in that review is that Dreams is not necessarily a game, but it's also one of the most important tools in video games I've seen in a long period of time. That's why I thought it was worthy of giving it a 10 out of 10. Dreams allows anyone to make a video game. And I think for people who truly, truly love video games, that is the dream. I know there's also that barrier in terms of coding, trying to learn how to code a video game, and Dreams doesn't have that. In fact, it breaks down those barriers, and for the first time, it truly felt like I could create any kind of game with Dreams. And to me, that's amazing. I still feel the same way about Dreams that I did months ago. I think it's one of the most important things to come out this year. It's a huge statement in terms of achievements and managing to do something like this on a console. I honestly think it blows my mind that something like this is on console. And it needs to be talked about a lot more, because I want this thing to last for years and years to come, and more people to create on this platform for years and years to come. Dreams is amazing.
You know how things work in Night City? The stronger survive. But that's how things stand. You're either somebody, or you fizzle out into nothing.
Dead Sea ain't a city that lets you get by without buddies.
Be very careful, my friend. We are all so far from home.
Cyberpunk 2077 was the game that me and many other people had their eyes on this year. It was that game that, in some cases, could have been that genre-defining, at least RPG-defining game. And I know in my case, because I played it on PC, that I said in my original review that I had the least amount of problems compared to a lot of people, mainly on console. But I still really fucking love this game. I couldn't help ignore the fact that this game had a lot of elements that The Witcher 3 had for me, a lot of stuff I love about The Witcher 3. They had the story there, they had the quest that was amazing, they had the characters that were amazing. Night City is one of the most stunning cities I've seen in a video game nearly ever. It's just the amount of detail and craftsmanship that's gone into Night City is outstanding at times. I'd be telling a lie if I was saying that the game was unplayable for me, because it wasn't. And I realized, as I said before, I'm one of the lucky ones. But as a lucky one, I can safely say that Cyberpunk 2077 is definitely one of the best games of the year. And I'm not disappointed in it in terms of its actual game and not the bug side of it, if you catch my drift.
What was his name again?
Cloud Strife. This is a one-time gig.
When it's done, we're done.
Come on, nobody do something this crazy just for money.
You gonna stand there and pretend you can't hear the planet crying out in pain? I know you can!
I'd worry less about the planet and more about the next 5 seconds.
Part of me didn't know what to expect with this game in terms of how they were going to do it, because obviously this is part one of many parts of the original game. So there was parts of me going into it where, and I think I mentioned this in the original review, I was nervous to play the game because this game meant a lot to me personally. It meant so much to me that it was good, and it was, you know, in my mind the way I want it to be. And in all honesty, it was near perfect. And I have to admit something. I was quite negative about this game in terms of a certain thing about this game when I talked about it in the review. And I realized in hindsight that this one little thing that I talked about brought me down quite a bit and changed my score quite a bit because of this one thing. And I ignored those hours and hours and hours and hours of playing this game beforehand and loved every single fucking moment of it. This game is outstanding. Probably the best soundtrack I've heard ever. Not only that, but they stayed true to a lot of the things that the original has, and I'm so glad they did. They did an amazing job with the characters, the voice actors, the way the game looked. It was like a weird dream when I was playing it. I couldn't quite believe I was playing it at times, and I'm forever grateful that it's out and it's now playable, and I actually can't wait for part 2. No matter how I feel about certain things about it, like I said in my original review, I still absolutely love this game, and I think it's one of the best games of the year.
I'm really glad to have you back, Cloud. Really glad.
So now we come to my favorite game of 2020, and this game stood above everything else this year. I think you all know what it is already. It is, of course, Fast and Furious Crossroads starring Vin Diesel, which lasted a total of 4 hours, and I'm not sad that I played that game ever. 10 out of 10. And there we go. Thank you very much. Goodbye. I'll see you next year. Bye. I really got to stop doing these shit games at #1 jokes. I mean, they're getting really old, aren't they? Now, as much as I want it to be, it's definitely not my #1 game. My #1 game of 2020 is...
who would seek to stop this. You are nothing but a usurper, a false idol.
The only thing they fear is you.
In many ways, I already knew what to expect from Doom Eternal. Having played the Doom 2016, absolutely loving it, considering it one of my favorite first-person shooters of all time. In a sense, Doom Eternal felt like it was going to be more of what was in 2016, maybe a couple more things added in. It wasn't. It was a whole lot more. And it was a whole lot better. And I don't know how they made it better, but they did. I know Doom Eternal for many is a lot more complex than the first one. And in some cases, a lot of people found that quite a hard challenge and much less enjoyable in some sense. But for me, Doom Eternal is the most fun I had in a video game this year. From the start of this game right to the very end, I never stopped having fun with this game. This game kicked your fucking ass. This game was hilarious at times. It just had a lot of things in it. and it had a lot of things right. And I think there wasn't too many negatives about it, aside from like the multiplayer, which isn't even the best part of it. That's just another thing they added on. The single player of Doom Eternal is one of the greatest first-person shooter campaigns I have played ever. It is so unbelievably fun. I just couldn't comprehend how much fun I had with this game. I never thought a sequel to a game that I already considered to be one of the best first-person shooters I've ever played to be even better just a couple of years later. Doom Eternal had everything. It had everything that I wanted in a top game of the year. I never considered Doom to be a game of the year contender because there were so many things coming out in 2020. But overall, it was just better than everything else, and it just did everything right. And I couldn't really pick out any things that I was annoyed with Doom Eternal. Yes, it was harder in places. Yes, there was more things to think about, and it was a lot more complex. But I enjoyed that challenge. There's a lot in Doom Eternal, and there's a lot to kind of process while playing it. But it's also one of the most unbelievably fun games I have ever played, and especially the most fun game I've played this year. And that is my top 10 games of 2020 and my last video of 2020. Thank you very, very, very much, guys, for watching all my videos throughout the year. I really honestly appreciate it. You've been such a huge support for me this year. This is like the most amount of support I've got this year. Most amount of videos I put out this year as well. So I really appreciate you all watching these videos. And I'm going to do a whole lot more in the new year. Thank you very much for watching. Happy New Year, and I shall see you in 2021 for more games. Bye.